These crusty old things. Look at the state of these. This rim is cracked. Oh my God, they look so good. I can't believe the finish that we got on these. These things are awesome. What's going on, guys? Now, before we kick off today's video, let's remind ourselves of when I said I really don't like black alloys. I'm not a fan of black wheels. I'm definitely not going to be going black with the alloys. I'm highly unlikely to have any black alloys on any car. I can explain. If you've been following me on Instagram, then you'll know that I recently got a flat tyre. But rather than just make do with whatever my local tyre place had in stock, I decided I wanted to get something a little bit better for this car. So, seeing as it doesn't run, I rolled the back wheels off a Mark 7 for now. And while I'm waiting for my new tyres to arrive, it gave me the perfect opportunity to refurb these crusty old things. The plan is to refurb the two front wheels first, then once they're done and the new tyres are on, I can stick them back on the car and then move the Mark 7 wheels to the back while I refurb the rear two. Now, I've got a range of products and tools to help with this refurb, so let's show you what I've got first of all. To start with, I've got some etching primer because we are going to be taking some surfaces on these wheels back to bare metal, especially around the edges where there's a lot of curbing, if there's any paint left on there already anyway. So we've got some of that. Then I've also got some alloy wheel filler, so we can fill in any really harsh sort of scratches and gouges and things like that, and hopefully get these nice and smooth. Next thing is I've got some filler primer, and this is actually from E-Tech. So is the etching primer. So if you remember from when we did the headlight restoration, E-Tech's the brand I used for the clear coat on the headlights. I had really good results with that, so I've decided to go for E-Tech again. I have also gone with an E-Tech base coat for the wheels, but unfortunately that hasn't turned up yet, and I'm also waiting for a couple of other little bits. Then finally, to seal it all in, I've actually gone for some 2K clear coat. This is one of those with the hardener inside that you have to release into the can, and then you get a certain amount of time to use it. If you don't know what 2K clear is, basically it's the kind of stuff you'd spray out of a gun, but in an aerosol. So we'll show you that when we get onto that stage. So all these products, sprays, fillers and things like that I'm going to use, I'll link all those in the description so you can find if you want to do this yourself. But for now, let's get on with refurbing the wheels. The first thing I want to do is clean these wheels to get any contaminants, any brake dust or dirt and road grime and things like that off them, just so we've got a nice clean surface to start with. I also wanted to remove all the old wheel weights because these will be getting rebalanced when we get the new tyres on there. Now, it's actually the following day. It got a bit dark last night, so now it's a bit brighter. I can have a look at the real state of these wheels. Now, I was hoping I would get away without having to paint the inside of the barrels, but I mean, that's just not going to happen. Look at the state of these. They're so bad. Like, this bit here is awful, so I think I'm going to have to sort those out as well. But the first thing I'm going to do is tidy up the outside edge and the faces of the wheels. Oh, and quickly before we get started, I got another flat. One of the wheels off the Mark 7 just went flat pretty much straight away when I drove it, so we're back on the spare again on this side. I'm not having any luck with tyres at the moment. But not to worry, because my new tyres for these wheels should be here tomorrow, so that means I better crack on and get these refurbed. Starting with a wire wheel attachment on my drill, I'm just going to go around the outside face and just try and clean up as much of this surface around here, where all the curb damage is, as I can. Now, I don't know about you guys, but I think that's looking a lot better already. Now, the next thing I want to do is remove any small little edges like this where the damage and the curb has actually pushed the metal out towards the tyre. So I'm just going to take a small file and just try and file that back until that's nice and rounded. Okay, there we go. So I'm just going to go and sort the rest of the little spots like those out, and then we can move on to the next step. I'm then going to take a larger file and just sand down any rough edges that are sticking out on the face of the rim. Next, it's on to everyone's favourite job. Sanding, sanding, and more sanding. Sanding all these areas where the paint's really rough and flaking off until they're nice and smooth. Right, you guys have seen me do a lot of sanding lately, so I'm going to crack on and get the faces of these wheels finished, and then I'll bring you back in when I'm ready to tackle the barrels. Okay, so it's the following day, and I've finished sanding down the faces of the wheels. Well, at least with this one. Now, I was going to have a look at the barrels, but to be honest, the barrel on this one isn't actually that bad, and I don't think I'm actually going to paint this. I've noticed there's a couple of welds in it, like there and there. I might give these a really light coat of paint just to protect them, but I'm not going to go crazy on doing the barrels. Now, when it comes to the other one, I haven't actually done the face of this one yet, but that's because I had a look in the barrel of this one, and if we look closely here, this rim is cracked and I really haven't got time to get this welded. Plus, the state of the barrel on this one is just awful. So I really don't think it's worth my time and effort trying to do anything with that, because like I say, it is cracked. Maybe I'll use this one as a spare in the future, but luckily I've got a solution. My friend Ash, who you've seen on the channel plenty of times and you know has helped me out with the new rear lights and stuff like that, and loads of different jobs as well, including the oil filter, if you guys remember that one. But anyway, that's besides the point. But basically, he is gonna lend me another one of these wheels because he's got a spare, so we're gonna refurb the face of that one, leave the barrel well alone. But for now, with this one, I'm gonna move on to do the center cap. Now the center of these around here, this like nut shaped looking thing, that is actually a different color to the main body of the center cap and the color of the wheel, but this is actually in quite good condition, so I'm going to leave this. Obviously this sticker's a bit rough, so I will be replacing those, hopefully for like black ones or something, but I'm going to try and leave this intact. So I'm going to mask around there and then sand this back. And there's also some high spots in these as well where these have been damaged, so I'm going to show you what I'm going to do to sort those out. So I'm going to get this middle bit masked up, and then with that masked off, it's time for more sanding. Okay, with these all scuffed up and sanded, now there's one last thing I need to do before these are ready for paint. Now, around the edge of these, there's quite a lot of like high spots. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take a small punch like this, just put it on the top of the high spot like that and give it a few light taps with a hammer and just try and flatten out any little spots like that around the rim. If you've got a set of these and they're well used, then you'll know what I'm talking about when I say this, but there is quite a lot of like spots around the edge. I think this painted bit is like a skin over the plastic, and I don't know whether stuff just gets in underneath it or what's quite causing that, but I found that just giving this a little tap with a little punch and a hammer helps sit that down, and then I'll just sand this really smooth again afterwards, and then we're ready to paint them. But before we can do any painting, I need to sort out all this curb rash, so I'm going to mix up some alloy wheel filler as per the instructions. And then just taking a little bit at a time, I'm just gonna try and smooth it into all the curb damage and try and fill in all the little gouges and scratches so that we can sand this back and finish with a nice clean rim. Okay, so I've got the filler all the way around the rim and it's looking pretty messy right now, but don't worry, we can sand this back and hopefully we'll get this rim nice and smooth, and then, only then, maybe we can paint these wheels. Okay, so the filler's had plenty of time to dry and it's gone really firm now, so I'm just going to come in with some 180 grit sandpaper and I'm just going to go around sort of the face of the rim to start with and just knock it down, try and get that nice and smooth, and then I'm going to come in again with another pass and then just try and like shape this to the rim, you know, get all these little bits in here and stuff like that. But again, it's just more sanding, so I'm not going to show you that. I'll crack on, get sanding, and then I'll show you when this is all nice and smooth. Okay, so this is going to be a bit of a strange cut because the last clip that you saw would have been me working on these wheels at the same time as doing some final prep for the wrap. But it is now Tuesday evening, actually. I don't think it is. No, it's actually Wednesday morning. It's just past midnight on the Wednesday morning of the week that the wrap is getting done. The Fiesta ST is not here. It's up at Ash's parents' place getting wrapped. We're probably about halfway through the wrap at this point, but I decided to come back tonight and crack on with the wheels. So just to let you know where I'm at, I told you that one of my wheels actually had a crack in it. Ash has saved the day. He's been so kind to me and he's given me his spare ST wheel. The tyre on it is gone, so that's fine. But the one problem I've got is my wheels were gross. This wheel was pretty much perfect apart from a bit of curb rash, so I've managed to sand that down. Hasn't taken a lot, little bit of filler, and I'm just smoothing that out now. So this wheel is pretty much ready to go. The only thing that is annoying me with this one compared to my ones is that the colour on this one is so much nicer. You can just see that like metallic kind of flake in it. Whereas I've tried the paint that I've bought for these, which has now turned up, and it's an E-Tech metallic silver. Like I mentioned at the start of the video, I haven't painted these yet, obviously, but I did do a test somewhere on here. I have sanded it off again now, but anyway, the colours were not a match at all. Unfortunately, this one that Ash has given me looks way better, but I haven't got the paint for that, so I'm going to have to go with the E-Tech metallic silver. So sorry, Ash, going to be covering over this, but like I say, you know, 90% of this wheel is perfect. It's just the rim I've had to do a little bit of filling. So just to talk you through what I did, basically on this one I used way too much filler. It took me a long time to sand down. I had to knock it back with 80 grit sandpaper, and actually at this point I've bought some better abrasives. The ones I was using before were just terrible. They didn't last at all. So I've got some better abrasives. Knocked the filler down on this one with 80 grit and then moved up to, I think it was 220 grit, just to smooth it all out and, you know, shape everything around here. But I've got that really good now, so you can see where all the curb rash was on this one. It was really bad, but I've got that all nice and smooth now. Like I say, knocked it down with 80 grit and then shaped it with 220. Then I've gone over the whole wheel with 320 grit, and I'm about to go and scuff this one up with 320 grit, and then we'll catch up tomorrow in between doing jobs with the wrap. Hopefully I'll manage to get 2 of these painted, and then I'll get the 2 rear wheels done. Hopefully, maybe sanding tomorrow night and then painting the day after. But this is all going on while the wrap is happening. But you'll have already seen that by the time this video comes out. So I just wanted to give you a little update. And that is everything for now. So I'll catch up with you when we're painting these wheels. Before I called it a night, I gave the wheels a wipe down with a panel prep. And then I gave them a quick couple of coats of the etching primer, because this stuff does take quite a while to fully cure. Okay, so this is what the wheels are looking like after 2 coats of the etching primer. Now, these aren't actually the 2 front wheels that we started with. These are the rear wheels, because I had a bit of a problem with the fronts. I was trying to get these done in time for Ford Fair, where we revealed the wrap, and that is now complete. But I was really stretched for time to get tyres fitted, because obviously Ford Fair was on the weekend, so I had to rush on the Friday to get tyres fitted to the front wheels. So I've got new tyres on there already, and I'll show you those later. But then I also had to do a really rushed paint job with the new tyres on the wheels, and it didn't turn out very well at all, because the 2K clear that I bought just wasn't any good. Like, I'm sure it would have been fine if it had sprayed properly, but the can was faulty. As soon as I sprayed it, it was just bubbling out from underneath the cap. Like, the spray pattern was fine, but there was liquid just bubbling out from underneath the cap of the can, so it was just no good. And the front wheels, although they're painted, they haven't got any clear coat on them, so I am going to be going over those again shortly. But for now, we're going to carry on with the rears. First, I'm going to flat back this etching primer with one of these grey scuffing pads, and this is equivalent to about 1000 grit in sandpaper. So I'm just going to lightly scuff the surface of the etch primer just to get a nice smooth surface and a good key for the high fill primer to stick to. Then after a quick wipe down with panel prep, we can spray our first coat of high build filler primer. After one coat, you can see this is only just lightly dusted on here, so with the second coat we're going to go quite a bit thicker to build up those layers. So as you can see, after the second coat of primer, this is on quite nicely. We're going to do one more coat, and this is going to be the wettest coat that we do next, but we can sand that back later. I'm going to try not to get any runs, but it's not really an issue, because the whole point of this filler primer is to fill in any high or low spots, and then we can flat this back ready for base coat. Okay, so I've just sprayed the third and final coat, and I'm hoping this comes across on camera, but I've tried to go nice and wet with this coat. I think I've got a really good finish on here. I mean, this has still got to dry, but that was the whole point, is I wanted to go nice and wet with the third coat. So we've got a nice thick surface, so we can sand back and just level out any of those high or low spots, and then we're ready for base coat. Before I sanded down the filler primer, I went over any little pinholes or imperfections with finishing putty. This is like a filler, but for very fine imperfections. So I just dabbed it on with my finger and then sanded it nice and smooth. You don't need any sort of hardener with this, it just goes on and dries really quickly. I then lightly sanded the filler primer to give it a good key ready for the base coat. I wiped everything down with some panel prep, and then it was time to spray a really light first coat of the metallic silver base coat from E-Tech. Just like with the filler primer, on the second coat of base I went a bit thicker to try and get into all the little gaps in between the spokes, because it is difficult to get good coverage in these areas. With the third and final coat I went quite a bit heavier, and I did actually end up getting a couple of runs in between the spokes, but this paint leveled itself out and I got a really good finish. Next, it was time for clear coat, and like I said earlier, I went for a 2K clear, so that means there's 2 parts to this paint. There's a bladder inside the can that you need to pierce and mix a hardener into the clear coat. So there's a ring pull that comes in the bottom cap of the can, you press that into this little stud that's in the bottom, You pull that out and twist it, which pierces the bladder and releases the hardener or activator into the clear coat. You then need to shake this up, and you've got probably about 24 hours to use this before it all goes off and it gums up inside the can. The clear coat that I used had a really wide spray pattern and also an adjustable nozzle, so it made it really easy to get good coverage. One thing I will say when you're using a product like 2K Clear is make sure you're wearing a respirator. I can't stress that enough. These 2K products contain isocyanates and they're really toxic, so make sure you get yourself a proper respirator if you're spraying with these. As always, I went with 3 coats, the first being the lightest and the third being the heaviest coat to try and get that really glossy finish. Okay, so these wheels have had a couple of days to dry. They're sitting behind me and oh my God, they look so good, right? Bear in mind that these are DIY with rattle cans outside on my driveway. Like, you are not going to believe the finish that we've got on these. They look so good. But before I show you them, we need to get the masking tape off the tyres and then we can show you what these are looking like.
I ain't gonna give in now. I think I'll live this now. I'm gonna be when I'ma kill this stuff real quick. I'ma go take it to town, cause I gotta be that king in the ring when I'm knocking them out when I'm back with the wheel. Cause I am just up on the journey. You just know that I'm just going insane.
Okay, so that is the refurbed wheels and they are looking so good. I can't believe the finish that we got on these with rattle cans and DIY. Like, these look insane. I'm sorry about the tyres. I know the tyres are really letting these down, but we'll be getting new tyres for these soon. But for now, let's get these back on the car. Okay, so there we go. That's the wheel refurb done, and I'm so happy with how these things turned out, especially for a DIY job on my driveway with rattle cans. I think the finish on these looks amazing, and as you'll have seen from the shots just there, eagle-eyed viewers will have noticed that we do now have new tyres on the front. I haven't got any on the back just yet, but I will be getting those soon. But the 2 front tyres were absolutely shot at, so they have been replaced. Now, what have I gone for? I've gone for Uniroyal Rain Sport 5s, and there's a couple of reasons for that. No, they're not the best or most expensive tyres out there, but they're certainly not the worst either. They're definitely better than a Toyo Proxy or something like that, but obviously they're not going to hit the heights of the likes of the Michelin Pilot Sports or Contact Sports from Continental or things like that. But you guys can argue about what your favourite tyres are in the comment section below, but the reason that I've gone for Rain Sports is because the one thing that, despite some of the faults people say are with these tyres, one thing they all agree on is that in the wet, these things are awesome. They are the rain tyre. So that's why I've gone for these, because although it doesn't look it today, I live in Wales and 9 times out of 10, the weather is miserable. It's always wet, it's always raining in this country. So why would you not go for a tyre that performs at its best in the wet? I've gone for a 205/45 R17, so these are slightly thicker in the sidewall than the standard tyres that would have come with this car. And again, there's a good reason why I've done that. It's because the roads around here are horrendous, so I wanted a little bit more rubber between me and the road, just to try and make it a tiny little bit more comfortable. I am normally a fan of that skinny tyre look, but I thought for this car, because I'm using this every day at the moment, I wanted something that was going to be practical as well. And it does feel the arches a little bit better as well. I do want to go a bit low with the suspension, but for now, that is sitting pretty damn nice as far as I'm concerned. Some people will probably say that, oh, you're going to have problems with your speedo being slightly out because of the different tyre and things like that, but I'm really not worried about stuff like that. It's only going to be marginal anyway, and I'm super happy with how this turned out, so that doesn't really matter. Now, because I didn't have it at the start of this video, this is the base coat that I use for the alloy wheels. This is E-Tex Metallic Silver, if you were looking to get this yourself. And then, just to go back to the 2K Clear that I used, this is from Pro XL. I didn't say that at the beginning of the video, but I just thought it was worth mentioning because I got a really good finish with this clear coat, but there is one issue I had with it. I bought 2 cans of this, and the first can actually failed. Once I pressed the nozzle, there was loads of liquid just pouring out from under the cap, and if I'd have gone anywhere near my wheels with this, it would have ruined them. So that is one thing to bear in mind. Although this is a really good 2K clear coat in an aerosol, and I've got a great finish with it. I did have an issue with the can. Luckily, the company I bought it from were really sound and sorted it out and sent me out another one, because this stuff for a 500ml can, I paid £20 per can for it, and I needed 2, so one can did 2 wheels. Like I said at the start, I'll leave the links to all of those products that I bought to do the wheel refurb in the description, so you can find them if you want to do this yourself. And let me know in the comments what you think of this wheel refurb, whether you think I've done a good job, whether you think the finish is good for DIY on the driveway. Again, with rattle cans, I think that I've done a really good job. You guys might think something different, but make sure you let me know in the comments below. But for this video, it's time to end. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time.